Serious, parents of Reddit who no longer love their children, why don't you love them anymore? Little sucker stole damn near everything from my house when I went on a vacation. He also stole half of my dad's coin collection before he passed away. Over $10,000 worth of stuff between both of our houses. I can say I just don't love him, but I hate every fiber of his existence. One day he stole my car and we haven't seen him since. It's hard to have someone leave your life like that, but at this point, 9 years later, I have no choice. I find my story is positive. I hope others find some positivity in my post. I've had 2 beautiful kids, but I don't love them as their mother. I was a 21-year-old and met a gorgeous and awesome guy. He was older, 27, and already graduated law school and was working at a law firm. He was great, smart, very attractive and very fit. Despite this, it was clear it wasn't a long-term thing. He, admittedly, didn't function well in relationships. However, I could tell he really loved and wanted kids, so I offered to give him a child. Sounds strange, but even though I knew we wouldn't be together and I knew I wasn't in love with him, I had a strong physical desire to give him kids. Again, it was strange and kind of hard to explain. We talked about it and he eventually offered to pay for my college degree and give me some money. I won't say how much. He bought me health insurance and then we started trying. I got pregnant surprisingly fast. I was on summer break for the first trimester, so I traveled. I, thankfully, didn't have a difficult time carrying. Giving birth was horrible, and I was just in school for the rest of my pregnancy. His mother was around a lot, so that was cool. I didn't have to do anything really to prepare for the child. He worked constantly during. He was trying to earn as much as he could, but we always had great sex and continued during the pregnancy. Mostly, I think this was stress thing. I had a girl and once she was born her father was on cloud 9. I think this caused the second pregnancy, because, well, we had a lot of sex right after. He begged me to carry the second pregnancy all the way through, so I did. I took a year off from school because I didn't want to graduate pregnant and I again got to travel. The second time seemed way easier and flew by. However, the second time around there was more distance between us. I had my own place and was flying around a lot and he was raising his daughter. The second child was a boy. The kids are 4 and 3 now. They have a wonderful father and a great extended family. We have a great relationship and I know he is there for me should I need him. I went back to school, graduated, and started my career. I've had some okay relationships. I relish in my freedom. My parents get to see the kids frequently and if I am over there I see them. They call me by my first name. They are great kids, but I don't have a motherly love type relationship with them. We've discussed eventually telling them I am their mother. He is okay with it because he doesn't think he'll ever get married, so he doesn't see any conflict with other maternal figures. My son also looks a lot like me, so they figure it out eventually. Might be worth telling them before they have some kind of existential crisis. I don't know if this counts, but I never did. I don't hate the kid by any means. Never wanted kids, was on birth control, but I was always told it's different when it's your kid. You just magically love them. Well, it wasn't different. He was just another kid I had no feelings for. I knew I couldn't be a loving parent a kid needs, so he was adopted by a family I know well. They live close and I've seen him grow up, but he's just some kid to me. I'm glad you had the guts to admit it and put him up for adoption, rather than putting you both through a crappy 18 years out of guilt. I never wanted to be a dad. I had no plans on ever having kids. Fate had other ideas thanks to hormonal BC not being 100% effective. My son is mildly autistic and has ADHD and has some severe behavior problems. We're talking I have to straddle him while on the floor on his back to keep him from destroying the apartment, hurting us. I always knew I'd hate being a parent, but I never knew it would be this bad. Holy crap, man. I feel so bad for you. That is literally one of my worst fears. I have 2 children and now I love them both dearly. However, it wasn't always that way for my youngest son. I planned my oldest, wanted him, loved him from the moment I knew I was pregnant, and took him everywhere with me except work until he was 2. We were inseparable. We are still very close. Now, my youngest was a surprise. I used protection and it was one night. I considered abortion but couldn't do it. Considered adoption but my family freaked out at the idea. So I kept him. I hated the person his father was and how his father treated. I wanted a girl if I was going to have a child, and didn't want to give up what I had with my oldest. I was selfish. After I had my youngest it got worse. I completely detached, barely picked him up, and didn't take care of him unless I absolutely had to because there was no one else around. It was like this for almost a year, made worse by the fighting with his father. My son reminded me so much of this man who made my life heck. When I met my son it changed. He got me help. He taught me to love my son and how to teach my son to love back. My child went from being this loner child who hated to be loved on or messed with to being this sweet, generous, amazing kid who can't leave the house without a hug. I would never trade my children for anything in the world. However, I wish I could redo that year of my life. It sounds like you made major progress, and you should be very proud of yourself for that. I didn't want him. A long time ago I thought I wanted a kid, but after having to raise my sisters for a while, I realized that I didn't. My wife wanted a kid. I tried to convince her of what raising one is like, that everything you are goes into the child. She told me she was going off her birth control. I just didn't expect her to go off so soon. We now have one. He is adorable, but I do not love him. I feel very little for him. I wish he hadn't been born. He has financially hit us hard. I am having to rearrange a lot of projects I've been working on for years, which means making other people rearrange their lives for him. And what is worse, he has taken my wife's creative energy out of her. She barely has any time to work on her art, and when she has the time, she doesn't have the energy. I want to start by saying that I am not at the point where I do not love my daughter. But there are days that I'll look at her and just view her as a human that I have to care for out of obligation. Maybe it is because I never wanted children. My fiance basically left us, and I am in the middle of my nursing degree, which adds an intense amount of stress. I don't think I have it bad compared to others, but it really doesn't help that I didn't want children, and I really wanted to develop my career and even continue my education as a nurse practitioner. There are many things I wanted to do during my career besides just continuing education, but now with a child I can't do them. It doesn't necessarily make me not love her, but it definitely stirs up some bad and really negative feelings towards being the mother I should be. I feel like a big part of me has been stripped away, and when my fiance took the path that he did I then had absolutely no help with her, so I felt even more defeated. I'm not sure if this is a satisfactory answer to your question, but wanted to give my perspective as a parent who is kind of caught in the middle. My wife took my kids and moved out a while ago to live with her parents. She didn't have to. There was nothing bad dangerous happening here, but I think she just wants to be taken care of. I work hard and do reasonably well, but could never keep up with her needs spending. The kids are mostly adult age but dependent on her as she is on her family. The fundamental issue I have with them all is that they live off other people and feel no responsibility to support themselves or even contribute. And for years it was all on my shoulders. I'd voice my concerns and basically be outnumbered. In reality, if anybody should have moved out, it should have been me. There are some other complications. She's been battling illness off and on, and we just don't get along anymore because of personality issues. Somewhere along the line she developed a major attitude ego that's compounded by her need for constant attention. It was exhausting. So the kids side with her. I'm the bad guy and it's all my fault. I'm just riding out the storm. Touching base. I see them on a sparse but routine schedule. I'll always love them. But to someone on the outside looking in, I can totally understand why they might think I don't. And she definitely paints the picture to family and friends that I don't. So be it. I was 17 and found out a 22-year-old sex friend got pregnant despite her on birth control and me using a condom at least 50% of the time. I told her to get an abortion, which she said no to originally because she really actually wanted to have my child. She tried convincing me with stuff like, with both of us as parents the baby'll be gorgeous. She'll have my smarts. I won't have to change my lifestyle since it'll be better to be educated. Her parents can help out, etc. 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 I didn't buy it. I finally convinced her to abort, but she said we needed to end things, so I ended up one less sex friend. Fast forward 6 years. I've been in an accident that left me quadriplegic 2 years ago. I get added on Facebook by my former sex friend. She has a 6-year-old daughter. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt terrible. She may have had the child against my will, but I just left her to fend for herself for 6 years. What kind of inhumane ACT is that? She told me she just found out I had my accident even though it was a while, and not to worry about money or being a father figure to our daughter. I'm hounded by all these conflicting feelings. I don't need to be a father figure because her fiance will take care of it. I want to. I don't need to help support. I want to. I don't need to care about them. I want to. I can't help out because I'm crippled. I want to. I'm not allowed to be near them because it'll interfere with their newlywed life. I feel like the life I should have had doesn't want me. I never wanted a daughter, but that doesn't matter because she went ahead and had her anyway. I should help her. Instead I'm out partying and dating frivolously until I ended up quadriplegic. I want to be able to support her, but I can't. I don't even know anymore, but I've built up so much resentment and jealousy that I dislike them. Ugh, that must be an awful thing to go through. I knew I didn't want to be a father because although I think little girls are adorable, like 1,000 puppies rolled into one, little boys do nothing but annoy the heck out of me. I think it's a genetic thing. My father and paternal grandfather are exactly the same way, which has led to a weird family dynamic. When I married, my wife didn't want kids either, but like so many of these stories, she changed her mind once she passed her 30th birthday. I was adamant. After all, there's no reasonable way to choose the sex of your child, and there was a 50/50 of getting a kid I didn't and would never want. I did not want to inflict that on some poor little boy, because I'll live through it. My dad did his best to hide it, but kids can see these things. Cue emotional blackmail, which didn't work, followed by secretly going off the pill, which did. I still resent the crap out of her for doing this, and will never get over her betrayal. Nor do I want to. What she did was unforgivable. Even so, I stayed and prayed the kid turned out to be a girl. The universe has a vicious sense of humor, because the kid turned out to be fraternal twins. One little girl who triggered the puppy's gene, and one little boy I had no attachment to whatsoever. I do my very best to hide it, but I'm sure he knows it, just like I did when I was his age. I've spent a great deal of time hating myself for not being the loving dad I should be, and could have been, if he's just been another girl, and even more time doing my very best to pretend to love them both equally. Fact is, though, I don't love him and never will. That kid deserves someone who actually feels something for him, and for whatever reason, I just don't. He's a fantastic little boy, and I just don't give a dang. There's zero response. If there's a heck, I'm sure I'll burn in it, and I'll deserve it. Therapy. The reason you hate little boys could well be self-hatred because your father acted the way he did, and the same with him and your grandfather. You need to break the cycle. Start some therapy. See if you can find some love for the little boy you were, and maybe you can find love for your son. I am going to differentiate between love and like. I was 31 when I had my son, and he was and still is much loved and much wanted. However, there are far too many days that while I love him, I do not like him in the least. He has a learning disability. It is not an intellectual disability instead it is a severe organizational skills disability. All of the things that most of us do fairly easily, keeping our schedules sorted out, doing multi-step tasks and such, are very difficult for him. Dad and I have been extremely supportive. We've made sure that he's had tutors, that he has helps as he needs it. Pretty much everything we could possibly do, either financially or by being supportive, we have done. He is currently living in my basement rental unit because at 22 he needs his space as much as I need mine. He's in college. This is after blowing 3 semesters at university because he couldn't be bothered doing the work. College has gone better, but because of his learning disability I still have to make sure his schedule is sorted out, that he gets places on time and such. It's incredibly tiring and stressful for me. He has another 5 semesters left in this program. His dad and I are financing school as well as sharing the cost of living expenses. He works but only part-time because of school commitments. I suppose I'm writing this because I'm frustrated. In some ways he's incredibly mature and bright. He's articulate. He's smart, and when he's in a decent mood he is enjoyable to be around. Unfortunately, he is lacking in self-confidence, both about his intellect and how people perceive him. He struggles to keep things together, suffers from depression, which is not his fault. He's had a rough couple of years, bad choices in girlfriends and such. I wish he would do something positive to help himself out. I know he will always need some degree of help to keep him on schedule, such as the nature of his disability. It's called executive function disorder if anybody is curious. But it would help tremendously if I didn't feel like I always have to be on his case to make sure he gets things done in a timely manner, that he's on time when he's going places, etc. Despite his rough time, he has a good life. He has a few good friends, a place to live, school is taken care of, but none of it seems to mean anything. Anyway, I felt like this was as good a place as any to vent. Thank you all for listening, Reddit. I never wanted to have kids. My girlfriend at the time ended up pregnant with my daughter and I kinda freaked out. I wasn't ready to be a father. I started drinking a lot and doing a bunch of drugs. I also started sleeping with a bunch of different women, going as far as bringing a stripper home one night and screwing her in the guest bedroom while my pregnant girlfriend slept in our bedroom. In the morning I was so hungover I actually had my girlfriend bring the stripper home because I couldn't drive. When my daughter was born, her mother was understandably still very bitter at me. I didn't see my daughter much, mostly because I couldn't really face her mother. On top of that, I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know what to do. When my daughter was around 5, her mother started seeing a guy that pushed her to let me into my daughter's life. She tried, but I just couldn't do it. I stayed away as much as possible because I was still scared. I had no idea what I was doing. I was still incredibly embarrassed about my behavior during the pregnancy, and I was making it worse by making my daughter have to live without her father. Right after her 8th birthday, I moved across the country. Even when I'd go home, I wouldn't really tell them because I was still scared to spend time with her. Every time we'd get together, it would just be awkward. I saw her again recently. She's a teenager now, but it's still very weird when we're together. Here's this person that I'm supposed to love and care about, but I don't know who she is. She doesn't talk to me. I keep trying to learn about her, hoping that some light switch will go off, but it never does. It's not that I don't love her anymore, I just never did. Long story short, I was activated for almost 4 years with my AF reserve unit about 120 miles from home. It kept me from bonding with my oldest daughter. I saw her maybe 3 or 4 days a month for about 2 years until they moved closer to me. We then had 2 more children and I am very close with them. She is barely ADHD, but medication helps. I honestly don't know what to do. Sorry, I'm on my phone and can't really go into more detail. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.